Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider and lead Lakers content creator for Offside, and joined on the show tonight by nobody. This is going to be a solo show. Raj was at Staples Center, or whatever we're calling it nowadays, which means I am riding solo, which means y'all got to get your questions and comments into the chat, and I will get to as many of those at the end of the show. Just make sure you hit me with question marks so that I can, or emojis or anything like that, to signify that you're asking a question. Also, the absolute best way, obviously, to get your question and opinion heard here is obviously by way of super chat, which is, totally your call, all that stuff. But I've had a few people kind of complain, hey, how come you're only reading why aren't you reading all of our comments and stuff? And it's like, because I'm doing this live, there is nobody behind the wall here helping us with noting good questions and stuff. And sometimes I miss them. So anyway, today on the show we're going to be talking about this Lakers loss to the Phoenix Suns, and it was their third game in 4 nights, as JJ Redick pointed out. 125-108 was the final. This one was over in the first half. I would say this was a pretty thorough ass kicking from the Phoenix Suns and from Dillon Brooks specifically. So, in this one, I thought the Lakers' energy level started low. They've fallen into some concerning habits that come with a team that can score as easily as the Lakers can at times, and hopefully this provides that jolt of like, oh, okay, yeah, we can't play like that all the time. And then the other story here coming out of this one is Luka Doncic blaming himself, which was good to see. I thought he was pretty bad, even though the numbers would dig. You would look at his numbers, you'd say, wow, 38 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, 15 of 26 shooting. That's actually fairly efficient. Like, he got to the free throw line a few times. And, I just think that if you're just box score watching that game, you're going to get told the wrong story by that box score. He was good, for stretches. And certainly in the first quarter, he came out and tried to set that tone with his scoring. But I thought it became a little too much 1-on-5. And eventually he turned the ball over way too much. It allowed Phoenix to get out and run, and the Lakers were not running, and that was kind of the difference in the game. Not just Luka, but I thought the biggest story here was 28 transition points for Phoenix and 2 for the Lakers. You were just never going to win if that specific stat is that kind of imbalance. So we'll talk about the game. We'll talk about this concerning trend, which I do think we can probably call a trend, that the Lakers, if they play against athletic, physical, on the perimeter type teams that do get out and run and are athletic enough to keep the Lakers out of transition. The Lakers, they got their asses kicked by the Thunder. Now everybody has, but the Suns are kind of similarly made up defensively, and they kicked the Lakers' ass tonight up and down the court. So. And then you go back to last year's playoffs, where Minnesota also built that same way, where you have all of that length and athleticism and physicality on the perimeter, and that gave the Lakers problems in a relatively unceremonious exit and departure from the playoffs from the Lakers last year at the hands of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I do think this is now getting pretty concerning, right? We've now seen it a few times, and we're waiting for the Lakers to just go out and beat the shit out of a team that does present those problems in the ways that those teams have beat the shit out of them. Like, we have seen the Lakers beat some of those teams, but it's usually kind of a knockdown, drag out fight that the Lakers out execute late or something like that. But we haven't seen the Lakers blow out a good team like that. that presents those problems. I don't believe off the top of my head. And that is where I would say, all right, we got to talk about this. So we will. Also want to talk about Dillon Brooks and the game that he put together. And we know that if you play well against the Lakers, you land on Rob Pelinka's radar. And not only did Dillon Brooks play well against the Lakers, he played well in that building with Rob present and absolutely dominated the Lakers at a position that the Lakers desperately need help. I know I got some people asking on Twitter about Jared Vanderbilt and him not being in the rotation. JJ Redick actually spoke about that at the beginning of the game or before the game. So we'll I guess maybe discuss some of that too. But we have, there's a lot to get to off of this game. So we may as well dive on in. A quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button if you guys are new around these parts. If you guys are not, please hit that like button. Both of those buttons go quite a ways in helping us grow here in the lounge. If you are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. And if you guys are listening to the show in the morning, please hit subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcasts, preferably on Odyssey. But you know what? They all count. They all register. I'll take them where you can get them, unless it's like an illegal stream, but you don't really need to illegally stream a podcast for free. I think to me, the story here starts and ends with the transition opportunities and the lack thereof from the Lakers standpoint. And also very notably, the ton of transition opportunities that the Suns got. Now, when you turn the ball over to the extent that the Lakers did, and they had 21 turnovers in this game, that is going to lead to a lot of, runouts and stuff like that. The Lakers also shot okay from the 3-point range, 13 of 33. I think some of that is held up by some garbage time shooting late. But when you miss 20 3-pointers and when you turn the ball over 21 times against a team that is looking to run against you, and athletic enough to do so, that's how you give up the 28 points. Now, from the Lakers' standpoint, now it also, if you just continue with this trend of analyzing transition opportunities by statistics, the Suns scored 125 points tonight. I want to see how many possessions they had here. Possessions, the Suns had 122.8 possessions to the Lakers 106.1 possessions, but they scored 125 points off of 122 possessions. Or kind of weird. No, I'm going to look at this again. So the Suns had 101 possessions. Lakers had 101 possessions. The Suns, ESPN's box score can be kind of wonky here. So I'm a little reluctant to rely on it specifically. Maybe the numbers will look better in the morning or different or make more sense in the morning. Here's what I will say. The Suns attempted 92 shots from the floor today. They also shot 8 free throws in this game. The Lakers shot 15 free throws, which makes up some of that gap, but the Lakers only attempted 80 shots in this game. And I thought the Suns did a fantastic job of not just keeping the Lakers out of transition. Jordan Ott, I think is their coach's name, rookie coach there. He has them playing really effing hard. But I was really impressed by Phoenix's discipline and commitment to getting back in transition because they did not let the Lakers run ever. Now, Lakers also didn't really let themselves run either, where I don't know how many, like if you're a rebounder for the Lakers, you should be catching all of your rebounds. Let's say the basket is here. Lakers are trying to score over there. If the Lakers, if you're a rebounder and you're getting a rebound, you should never, ever get that rebound facing your own baseline. The Lakers have so many guys that you can hit on a quick outlet. And you can, they can get players ahead of the group with hit-ahead passes. There are just so many uh, outlet opportunities on both sides of the court, basically. And I thought the Lakers grabbed a lot of flat-footed rebounds tonight that basically led to getting the rebound. Phoenix would apply some pressure off of the rebound, and then the Lakers would just kind of like wait and then throw a lazy outlet pass to whoever without gaining any kind of advantage whatsoever. That player would not throw a hit ahead pass. I thought Phoenix did a very good job of taking away those hit ahead passes. You even had a play tonight where Collin Gillespie cut in front of a LeBron James, touchdown pass that Luka's been throwing lately. Phoenix, credit to them. They deserve credit for this too. But I also thought that the Lakers kind of dipped into some ugly offensive habits here where it was like walk here, walk there, and then they get into their half court set, and it's walking to set a screen, and it's walking around the screen. I don't think you could probably count on one hand how many times the Lakers actually sprinted anywhere tonight. Any Laker sprinted anywhere. I just don't think we saw it. And the energy level in this one was pretty piss poor. The discipline level in this one was pretty piss poor. Collin Gillespie was always open, and that's the one thing that you can't let him be is open. This was just the Suns showed up and they wanted to send a message to the Lakers and to everybody watching that nope, yeah, we're for real. We got rid of Bradley Beal's corpse, and we got rid of Kevin Durant's weird chemistry that he seems to take everywhere with him. And we increased the level of give a bleep here with Dillon Brooks and Jordan Goodwin, and Devin Booker is playing fantastic basketball this year. And he is completely leaned into this like very scrappy mentality that the Suns are playing with. They have a whole bunch of athletes, right? That get after it. You have Royce O'Neal playing some of the best basketball of his career. You have Ryan Dunn came in tonight, and I thought really kind of changed the game with his energy level as well. Overall, I'm very impressed by what we saw here from Phoenix. And, I think we can separate the two things. I'm very impressed by what we saw from Phoenix. I thought they did some things to the Lakers that made the Lakers look as bad as they did. But I also thought the Lakers didn't necessarily do themselves any favors with their mental or physical approach to this game. Dillon Brooks, man, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here. I sent a text to Pete the other day. I was like, hey, man, what do you think about Dillon Brooks? And I'm not going to say to what extent he was, he replied or whatever, how excited he was about this. But let's suffice it to say that Coach Pete is okay with the Lakers trading for Dillon Brooks if it ever comes to that. Now, unfortunately for the Lakers, it looks like Phoenix is going to be too good for them to just like sell off parts. They currently sit at 13-9 right now. That is good enough in this kind of shittier West than we thought it was going to be. The Suns are currently the 7 seed, right behind, essentially tied with, but right behind in terms of percentage points, the Minnesota Timberwolves. If they remain in that play-in picture, let alone if it looks like they might be able to avoid the play-in altogether, they aren't selling, and if they do make some kind of a trade, they won't be trading the guy who is the backbone of this resuscitation, in many ways, or one of the kind of spiritual leaders of this resuscitation in Dillon Brooks. So, and I think Dillon Brooks is a lot of things. I think he's a dumbass sometimes. I think he can get out ahead of his skis pretty often, but I also think the dude is a winner. Like he, that dude just, and I think it's partially because of the position that he plays and the way that he plays that position. And I think if you can rein him in a little bit, he can really, really help. But, he's, let me see. I want to look at his career here. And this guy, everywhere that he's been, the team that he goes to tends to be better after he shows up and then gets worse after he leaves, right? So I want to see his career numbers, stats. Yeah, so he was in so he started his career obviously in Memphis and was a central figure to the culture that they were building with that um you know the John Morant, Bane, JJJ, like Brooks was a part of that core. And at one point that team looked like they were the future of the Western Conference. They were just really bleeping good in the West. Now, I think eventually those guys' heads got a little too big and they started saying some dumb shit about the Western Conference, right? We're good in the West. That aged extremely poorly. And I do think it was probably time for them to move on from Dillon Brooks. I probably would have moved on from Ja before I moved on from Brooks, but that's the choice that they made. They moved on from Brooks, and he goes from Memphis to Houston. Houston immediately gets better there, right? Houston was in the middle of a kind of a downswing. Then he spends a couple seasons in Houston. They get better there. They then decide the next step that they need to take, unfortunately, costs them Dillon Brooks, and they move him for Kevin Durant. And obviously, Houston, I guess that would be the exception to the rule here. Houston looks better now after trading Dillon Brooks, but I think that's more a factor of they traded for Kevin Durant and they got rid of Jalen Green. And now Phoenix was like the most disappointing, the most depressing team in the sport last year. So I guess technically low bar, but he gets to Phoenix. They trade Kevin Durant for him, or they trade Kevin Durant and get him in return. They rid themselves of Bradley Beal and now like they are probably one of the more surprising stories in the sport. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he brings in a level of energy and give a bleep and swag that can probably go a little overboard sometimes, but also with a younger team that kind of needs an identity or needs a voice in there. He is also the kind of guy who props up your younger guys. And they were talking about on the telecast how he's had an impact on Collin Gillespie. Now they tend to connect dots when one guy's playing well, another guy's playing well. One guy's a vet, one guy's a little younger. They'll say the vet has taken so and so under his wing. So I don't know. I don't follow Phoenix obviously as closely as people who cover that team do. But the people who friends of mine who cover the Suns and friends of mine who were Suns fans, they say that like Brooks brought with him kind of a culture onto his own. And again, it's kind of a bummer that the Lakers, you know, that the Suns are probably going to be pretty good this year, or at least too good to sell. It's a bit of a bummer that that's the case because the Lakers frankly need that level of give a bleep. And normally Marcus Smart provides it, but the problem with Marcus Smart being the only person who provides that swag and culture and give a bleep, with that specifically coming from Marcus Smart, he hasn't been able to stay healthy for the last few years of his career. He's already missed a bunch of games here for the Lakers, or a few games here for the Lakers. And I don't know, they've been very vague about Smart's current injury. They were saying it was back spasms, and then now they're saying injury management with that lower back thing. I don't know if that means that he technically made progress between, the spasms that he was having a couple of days ago, and he just has like the residual soreness that you get with back spasms. As I said in yesterday's show, I had spasms. I grew something like 8 or 9, maybe 10 inches between my sophomore year, or from the time that I graduated as a sophomore to the time that I graduated as a junior. I sprouted up like, quite a bit. And that whole year, and basically in like the following 3 or 4 years, my body was like still getting used to growing as much as I did there. I had brutal back spasms, and whenever I had them, they took me out for the day afterwards. So maybe, and I'll ask about it, maybe this was the day after those spasms, and Smart will be good to go later in the week. They play again on Thursday, so they have a couple of days to. They won't practice tomorrow. They will practice on Wednesday, and then they will be, back in action on Thursday. Um, but anyway, like, if Smart is the person providing all of those things and the only person providing those things, especially with Vando out of the rotation, you run into nights like tonight where nobody provides those things defensively, right? Like this is one of my concerns with starting Rui over Smart is if you don't start Marcus, then you put yourself in a spot where Marcus and Vanderbilt have to play together, and JJ is never going to do that. But if you start Smart and you bring Rui off of the bench and you bring that, Rui helps you with spacing, that makes it a little bit easier to play Vando. And especially, by the way, too, right? You're bringing Hayes off of the bench, so that means you're going to be with that bench unit. You're going to have Smart and Vando and Hayes out there together. JJ is just never going to play that kind of a lineup together, and those lineups just haven't been very good. So if you start Smart and you bring Rui off of the bench, that breaks up some of the poor spacing there, and gives that unit the release valve that I think they need at times, and also gets Rui more involved. Like I'm looking at, I'm look at tonight's box score. Rui Hachimura played 23 minutes, shot one shot in the game, grabbed one rebound in the game, and was a minus 12 in the game. So like he just basically, and this has basically been what it's been since he got into, or since LeBron came back, and they've been starting Rui alongside that group. Now they've been winning games, and I would say that they should maybe be winning some of these games against lesser opponents in more, confident fashion. But yeah, I just, the reason I want to talk, I'm making these points about, in a segment that started talking about Dillon Brooks, whether it's Brooks specifically or whoever it is the Lakers go out and get, they need more sources of Give a Bleep as a resource than they currently have, right? Austin, not really wired that way defensively. LeBron obviously isn't wired that way at 41 years old. Luka, not wired that way. DeAndre Ayton, not really wired that way. Rui Hachimura, certainly not wired that way. And then you go to the bench in a game where you don't have Marcus Smart out there, and Jared Vanderbilt finds himself out of the rotation. Well, Jake LaRavia, not really wired that way and not really talented enough to be wired that way defensively. Hayes is wired that way a little bit, but he plays such a small role in the rotation that it doesn't really bring you anything. And a Gabe, I guess, does a little bit, but he's so small. So that, he can care all he wants, but he's tiny. And basically JJ has chosen Dalton over Vando for the rotation while Smart has been out, and Dalton isn't wired that way either. So the Lakers have zero like high intensity defensive players there. Adu Thero, I know some of you guys are going to say, well, Adu, and it's like, yeah, but he's not, clearly not ready yet. And JJ like does not trust him at all. Why would he? He didn't play in training camp, and he, like, the minutes that he has played so far have almost all come from the G League that JJ Redick is not coaching. So yeah, the Lakers, whether it's, internally with the guys that they have right now and maybe with some roster tweaks, got to get some of that Give a Bleep back into the rotation. Some of those guys who are not wired in that way, frankly, need to change their approach to a certain extent. Like, this is something that Pete and I were talking about the other day in texts. And I've made this point on the show and all this stuff, but one of the things, like, we are in the process of seeing a transformation here with the Lakers that, as they become more, as they move from being a genie bus and a bus family organization, and they move into being a more modern Mark Walter organization. One of the things that the Dodgers basically do is they acquire players and they tell that player, and that's a little harder to do in the NBA with, a smaller minor league program, more guaranteed contracts, more guaranteed money, all this stuff. So it's not apples to apples, but the Dodgers basically they tell the guys that they bring in. They say, "Here is how we think you can get the most out of this situation and we can get the most out of you in this situation. This is how you can impact winning the most. Here's and this type of data that backs up our claim. Here's how we would like to put this into practice. If you are, and they'll do this before they even acquire players, but they basically they talk to these people, they talk to and I say people because oftentimes it is a very human thing. Like, all right, are you down with sacrificing some of your prior habits for the betterment of this team and by extension the betterment of your career? And some players, they've had some guys that said that didn't really lean into it to the extent that they needed to, and they aren't Dodgers very long. Or they'll have guys on the other side of that coin who do lean into it. You have like the Max Muncies, the Chris Taylors, the Justin Turners, the Kike Hernandezes, the from a pitching standpoint, right? You have Blake Trinan, who was kind of the nth degree example of this too. And the Lakers or the Dodgers basically, built out this culture of not just being able to spend on Shohei and on Mookie and on Freeman and all this stuff, but they also maximize return on gambles that they make by bringing in players and keeping players who are more attuned to the culture that they're trying to build. And that's something that the Lakers eventually are going to start working on too. If Rob Pelinka and if he opens himself up to this idea of investing into the organization from a developmental standpoint, the Lakers will be, during the process of acquiring players, they will say to player X, player Y, player Z, hey, here's what we have in mind for you. Here's the kind of role that you would be playing. Here's the kind of basketball that we want to be playing. Here's the reason that we're acquiring you in the first place. And here's, by the way, how we think you can maximize your return on being a Laker too. And it takes time. You have to build up that track record that allows players to trust you and allows agents to trust that culture that you're building. So this isn't going to happen overnight. But like if the Lakers were to trade for an Andrew Wiggins before they traded for him, if they had fully transformed into the Dodgers organization that I support the way that I do, before they trade for an Andrew Wiggins, they'll be like, hey, this is the expectation here of you. This is what we're going to be doing here with you here. Or they will trade for some wing that they see, like a Sadiq Bey, right? I was really impressed watching him play the other night. They'll trade for a Sadiq Bey and they'll go to him and they say, hey, we have the best shooting coaches in the world. Go over there and be a better shooter with these specific shots, right? They'll go out and, they'll see an offensively talented player who is athletically gifted enough to also impact the game on the defensive side, right? Think Rui. And as they're acquiring Rui and with Rui in their organization, they'll be like, hey, man, it's really cool the strides that you've taken to be a better offensive player so far right now than you were before you got here. However, if you want to play for us, if you want to start for us in the way that you clearly want to, you're going to have to get after it defensively. You're going to have to box out. You're going to have to go out and rebound. You have to rebound in traffic. You're going to have to rebound with your elbows out, already pivoting to try to find the outlet that you need to find. You need to get out and run. You need to do all of these things that make you a more efficient and a more effective player than you are right now. And by the way, if you do those things, you could turn yourself, like right now, Rui Hachimura is, I think, making like 18 or so million bucks, maybe a little more. And I think he would obviously like to be making more. And the reason that he and the Lakers didn't come to an agreement on an extension was because that gap was, he thought he's worth more. Lakers right now don't want to clutter their books, especially with money devoted to players who they're kind of hoping become this, that, and the other. Um, they would say to Rui, you want that amount of money? Fine. Become this specific player. Right. And it's kind of funny because they played against that specific player tonight in Dillon Brooks with the way that he played. Not only in this game, there was some outlier shooting stuff. He was on fire, pull up jumpers and all of this stuff. He was incredible. But I think more importantly with Brooks, become this player with this attitude, with this approach to defense, with this approach to physicality, with this swag, this level of give a bleep, that if Dillon Brooks sees somebody isn't playing very hard, and the Suns don't have very many guys who don't play very hard, but if Dillon Brooks sees that somebody isn't, is kind of floating around out there, either offensively or defensively, he lets them know it, right? He'll tell you, no, fuck that. You got to run. Whether it's running out on offense, whether it's running into this rotation spot on defense, whether it's running to a screen, running to this, doing whatever it is. If you're passing up on a shot, like I saw LeBron passing up on shots tonight, like that's the kind of thing that, somebody needs to get in LeBron's ear and be like, hey man, you're floating. Shoot. and shoot before your 10-point streak is on the line. Shoot. So yeah, that was the thing that I would like my big takeaway here watching Dillon Brooks. Now here's where the conversation gets a little tricky, right? Is this a ceiling defining trend? This meaning the way that the Lakers play against athleticism and length and all that stuff. Is that a season defining trend for the Lakers? Or is it a few blips on the radar that confirm our concerns when they happen, right? Is there some confirmation bias at play here? Let's go through some of their wins and losses, right? So they lost to the Golden State Warriors on opening night, got pretty embarrassed on that end, and how and why. Let's look at that box score really quick. In that game, the Lakers turned the ball over 19 times. That's too many turnovers for a team that can execute the way that the Lakers do. And I thought the Suns really kind of swarmed them. They got out and they ran, and the Lakers just looked like the slower, meandering team in that game in some somewhat concerning fashion. But after that, they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now the Wolves have not been as good as everybody in I was a little down on the Wolves coming into the season, but they are not playing to the level that people kind of anticipated they were going to be playing. And, so I guess we can, factor that into this, but they beat the Wolves and they beat them handily. And they deserve credit for that. Now the Wolves don't have Nickeil Alexander-Walker anymore. He was a big part of what gave the Lakers some problems last year in the playoffs. Jaden McDaniels hasn't been defending. He's been a much better offensive player this year, but he hasn't been defending and didn't defend that night the way that, he kind of needed to. And then their next game, Sacramento, bad defensive team. Portland's another one of those long, athletic, high motor, high level of give a bleep teams. Remember that game was not particularly close. 122 to 108 was the score at home against the Portland Trailblazers. So there's another kind of, step in that trendy direction. They barely beat Minnesota. They barely beat Memphis. They barely beat or they beat Miami. Now they do come back and they beat Portland, so that certainly helped. And then the next kind of long and athletic team that they played was the Atlanta Hawks, and they lost that one 122 to 102. A game that they were just thoroughly overwhelmed in, and by a shorthanded Hawks team, too. By the way, I wonder when they're going to trade Trae Young. Next game after that, they beat Charlotte. game after that was the most embarrassing loss of the season, right? That was the Oklahoma City loss where OKC just came out and blitzed them, punched them, did all of the things to them, and obliterated them. So that's another kind of notch in the belt for some of you who are very concerned about the way that the Lakers handled this specific thing. That's another one, right? Where you say, all right, New Orleans not really wired that way. They beat New Orleans. Milwaukee, they are closer to being wired that way, but not really, right? Like they don't have a ton of perimeter give a bleep on that team. So I'm not really counting that one as a win in that regard. Utah, a couple times, they are, somewhat surprisingly good, but not to the level that they need to be. The Clippers have been a mess this year. The Mavericks have been a mess this year. New Orleans, they beat them, uh, the other night, or last night, right? And New Orleans was crazy shorthanded, and then they played Phoenix tonight, and that length and athleticism and give a bleep really gave them problems. So I I do think that the Lakers. All right, so here's what I'll say. I don't think that this is some crippling problem for the Lakers in that like they will never know how to deal with that level of perimeter defense, and they will never be able to handle those things. Um what I will say though is that there is basically nothing that the Lakers can do until trade season that would bring their overall athleticism, and especially athleticism that JJ Redick would trust. There is nothing that they could do that would bring that level of athleticism up to where it would need to be, so that that deficiency isn't so glaring. I'm sorry. I just don't see Jared Vanderbilt being back in the rotation. Now look, I guess uh last year, right? They had Max Christie in the rotation, and then he played really poorly and he fell out of the rotation. And then through necessity, he got back into the rotation and earned a starting gig there and really kind of helped turn the Lakers season around when he did. So, like, there are cases where, the Lakers and JJ Redick, is very good with this stuff. I've had plenty of people tell me from behind the scenes that this is really a strength of his, that level of communication to stay on players and make sure that they remain engaged even when they aren't in the rotation. So maybe with the fact that the Lakers clearly need rotation. Like if I see it and if you see it, the Lakers also see it. And maybe now that they aren't in the middle of a winning streak, remember that was something before the game that JJ said. Uh, I'm going to paraphrase because it was a long quote. It tends to be with JJ, but like it was a long quote about Jared Vanderbilt and how he's handling being out of the rotation, and he basically said, "Look, we've won 7 straight. It is really hard, i.e., impossible, uh, to tweak a rotation when you're in the middle of a streak like that." And until there was some kind of change in the results, that you weren't going to see this, overhaul that you would need to see to get Vanderbilt back out there. Now, do I think it's possible that instead of entrusting some of those minutes to Dalton Connect while Marcus Smart is out, and maybe those minutes go to Vanderbilt instead? Or maybe instead of entrusting those minutes to Maxi Kleba, some of those minutes go to Jared Vanderbilt instead? Possibly. I could maybe see that now that they've lost this game and lost in the way that they did. And given the fact that like the athleticism concerns remained even while that they were winning. So like maybe, we see that tweak to the rotation here with Vanderbilt, but at the end of the day, I don't think JJ Redick will ever trust Jared Vanderbilt to the extent that some of Vando's biggest fans online want him to be trusted, because JJ Redick always is going to default to shooting. And that's just something that Jared Vanderbilt never learned how to do, not even a little bit. I think he's a worse shooter now than he was when he first got to the Lakers, quite frankly. So, and it's not just the shooting, right? He doesn't trust himself to finish around the rim. His cuts are always they always kind of round out and they wind up being kind of timid. And he gets into the paint and he looks to he always, he gets into the paint and he's looking for outlets so that he doesn't have to go up and either try to make a layup or get fouled and embarrass himself at the free throw line. So like when an offensive player plays like that, JJ Redick is just never going to trust him. And Jovan always kind of points to that stat of last year where the only times that Vanderbilt played more than like I think his numbers was like 18. If I don't think it was 8, I think it was 18 minutes. But the only times that Vanderbilt played more than like 18 minutes in a game, no matter what situation the rotation was, it tended to feature garbage time. And it with like if that with that being the case last year and not seeing any change to his offensive game this year, why would JJ Redick, who again we know is hardwired to care more about offense than defense, why would he change his approach with JJ this time? So uh we'll see. We'll see, I guess. But you know, the athleticism is a concern. And I do think eventually the Lakers, like, they got to bring in more player movement, more ball movement to kind of counteract some of that ball pressure that some of these teams are hitting them with. I thought tonight, again, like pretty telling stat here in this game, but let's see where I'm at. One more back. All right, the box score from tonight. You know who was the worst player on the court in terms of just raw plus minus? Not the best stat, but still. You know who the worst was? Luka. He was a minus 25. Next closest was Jake LaRavia at a minus 20. And yeah, I would, when it comes to uh when it comes to what the Lakers needed from Luka tonight, I thought he got way too involved in the mano a mano kind of deal. And he says that he was actually trying to facilitate out of those spots a little too frequently. And that led to some of the turnovers that he just needed to continue to try scoring there and try to like kind of lift the Lakers with his scoring. Maybe I'll be curious to see if he still feels that way tomorrow. But what I will say though is look, the Lakers, it's the thing that I've been talking about the last few days. What makes the Lakers truly unique is that you have 3 offensive engines at the level of Luka and Austin and LeBron. And if one of those engines approach to a game kind of takes those other 2 guys out of their rhythm in the way that it did tonight, that is when you run into a bit of a problem. And I sent this tweet earlier, and Pete and I have talked about this on the pod before, but here's what I wrote. I think this was in the third quarter. Luka tends to default back to slowing the game down to a crawl and dominating every possession when his team isn't playing well. It makes sense given his experience before this specific team, but he needs to realize he has more offensive help on this roster than on his previous ones. And I don't mean by that like finishers. Obviously, Dallas had better finishers a couple years ago than he has on this Lakers team. Daniel Gafford is one of the best field goal percentage players in the modern era. You have Derek Lively, who was actually healthy back then. He was excellent at finishing above the rim and around the rim. You had Derek Jones Jr., who provided some wing athleticism and ability to get up over the rim from a slashing perspective that the Lakers just really miss because Vanderbilt just isn't that kind of a player, that kind of an athlete. But he just, when he gets the ball in his hands, he isn't that skilled. He isn't skilled enough to be that kind of a player. And you had, in years past, you had Dorian Finney-Smith, and you've had, you've had just better finishers on those teams than the Lakers currently have. And that's not what I mean though. What I mean is, and Kyrie Irving was obviously a very good offensive engine onto his own, but he's not LeBron. He's like, I would say he's better than Austin Reaves in some of these regards, but you also got to kind of look at like Kyrie Irving's success rate when he was the only engine on some of his teams, and his winning percentage on those teams was always a little bit lower than some of those teams might have liked. And yeah, I think when you have, and look, the numbers with LeBron and Luka and Austin out there together have been bad so far this season. They're going to be even worse after this game. And when you have, when you basically feel like you have to survive the minutes that those three guys are out there together, that's kind of a fatal flaw to the makeup, and that needs to be addressed one way or the other. And I think some of this is going to be resolved with reps. And I think some of, like, you'll see sometimes, when LeBron is setting a screen for Luca, both of those guys are just kind of like, all right, now what do we do here? Like, they look like that awkward eighth grade couple that's like awkward eighth grade dancing, slow dancing, right? Where it's like, do you move this way? And I guess I'll kind of move this way. Oh shit, my hand went down a little too low there because I was focused on my feet. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Like, it's just watching those guys run stuff together. It's just really awkward right now. And it doesn't really surprise me that it is. They haven't gotten very many reps together. It looks a lot more natural when LeBron and Austin run things together. That also makes sense because they've gotten a ton of reps together. So, some way, somehow, Luka and Austin and LeBron are going to have to look a lot more comfortable together when they're out there on the court, and they have to find, like, sorry, Austin's going to have to do more cutting than he does right now. LeBron, who is one of the best cutters in basketball history, needs to be more active in that regard. You basically have these, you'll go through these stretches, especially with the starters, where it's like Luka's handling the ball up top, and it's four guys all just kind of standing there, and they'll kind of say like, okay, we'll set a screen, or we'll screen for a screener, and we'll do all this. And it's like they have to like remind themselves to move. And that starting group is just so clunky. It's so slow. They play even slower than they should athletically, and it's just been kind of a mess. And it's been a mess even while they were winning. So now that they are no longer winning, maybe that's the excuse that JJ Redick can kind of use to try to address some of those things. And look, like, I see this comment right here, and oh shit, we have 4-star comments, so I'm going to dive into some of those ASAP. But Mo Love OG, sky is falling. It's not. I'm just pointing out things that were bad while they were winning, now that they were really, really bad in a game that the Lakers got their asses kicked. And I'm pointing out trends that date back to last year when the Lakers got embarrassed in the first round of a series that they had home court advantage in, with a specific set of skills that the team presented them that the Lakers continue to struggle with to this date. So, like, is the sky falling? No. Like, are the Lakers, like, look, you got to ask yourself, okay, my bad, my love. You're saying it's sarcasm. Um, I don't think the sky is falling, but the Lakers, I think, can win a championship this year. Like, I think they can. If I didn't think that the Lakers could win a championship this year, I wouldn't give a shit about some of these trends. I'd be like, yeah, they are what they are, and we all just kind of like move on because whatever. But because of what I have seen from those three guys when they are on the court, either together, maybe not together, but like over the course of 48 minutes of having those three offensive engines on the court, like, I just think that is a special skill set that we just haven't seen ever, frankly, in the history of the NBA. And when you are truly unique in that way, like we have never seen a defense like OKC's right now. And when you have something that kind of unique and you are that special at something, we've never seen a team offensive rebound the way that Houston does. when you have a specific set of skills that are, I keep on saying the taken thing, but when you have a skill set that we just haven't seen before in NBA history, um, it makes me think that you have a decent chance at winning a championship. And so, yeah, my expectation level have gone up a little bit here. Um, Maybe they're slightly unfair, but I'm holding this team to championship account. And if they are going to win a championship this year, you kind of have to be a little harder on them on some of this stuff. So, no, I don't think the sky is falling. It is a little cloudy out there. It's cloudier than I would like to be. I would prefer to see that the sun shine a little bit more against some of these types of teams, the Portlands of the world, the Oklahoma City Thunders of the world, this type of team, this Phoenix Suns team that we just watched the Lakers get their asses kicked by. I would like to see the Sun against those teams. I'd like to see the Sun against the Suns. In a silly way. Yeah. The Warriors also, right? They swarm you like crazy, and they especially will when DeAnthony Melton returns. He's supposed to come back any day now. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. The sky isn't falling, no, but I'm starting to notice one specific crack that dates back to last year when the sky did fall and the season did end in the way that it did. All right. Super comments mean this. First one comes in from Trucker Star 7. Thank you very much for the super. This is a second round team at best. Rui is a starter, ? So I've never been on board with Rui starting. I've wanted Marcus Smart in the starting lineup. And I continue to feel that way to this day. What I will say, from a devil's advocate standpoint, and it is a devil's advocate standpoint because I feel this. I feel that Marcus Smart should be starting, and frankly, I would rather have LaRavia in the lineup instead of Rui there. But I would prefer Marcus Smart be starting. But if you're the Lakers coaching staff and this guy hasn't been able to stay healthy all for the majority of the last couple of years, and now he's dealing with a back issue and he's dealt with this other thing earlier this year, and you're starting to notice the bumps and bruises kind of stack up a little bit. Would you want to have somebody who is probably going to be in and out of the lineup as frequently as Smart is going to be? Given that you're also going to be dealing with LeBron being in and out of the lineup as frequently as LeBron is probably going to be now that he's 41 years old. Like, do you want to introduce a variable of that level, even if he might make more sense than Rui does from a basketball perspective? Or would you rather just have somebody who, like Rui Hachimura, he has missed some time, but for the most part, he's a younger guy. He's a healthier guy. He's a freaking specimen, right? He's built like a semi-truck. Like, this guy is just kind of built to last through an NBA season. And would you rather just kind of stick with the guy who you feel like is going to be just available more frequently? That might also be a factor here. They have talked about how Rui allows Luka to start games as a scorer, and the way that the amount of space that Rui gives Luka to do that kind of a thing. And I get it. I understand kind of the thinking process there. However, my thing with that is I don't know that I need Luka to be a scorer right away. Like, I would rather the game kind of dictate the kind of game Luka is going to play. And if you are doing things specifically to make Luka a scorer, he's already a very talented scorer. He's going to score no matter what. I would rather play a more balanced lineup that allows you to defend and maybe get out in transition. The problem with like the OKC, this was the case. Basically, you look at all of the Lakers' losses so far this year. I maybe this will be something that I'll look at for tomorrow's offside video. But I would wonder what the Lakers' transition scoring is in wins versus what it is in losses. And I would venture to guess that it's probably higher, if not quite a bit higher, in wins versus losses. And tonight, again, 2 points total on the game. Phoenix did a fantastic job getting back in transition, but I also thought the Lakers did a fantastic job of keeping themselves out of transition. So, I do I think they're a second round team at best? No, because, um, well, all right. So, let's say you beat your first round opponent. Right now, the Lakers still sit, I believe, at second. Denver lost again tonight. Um, NBA standings. Yeah, so the Lakers are 15-5. The Rockets are 13-5. So technically speaking, the Rockets could win those 2 extra games and would have a better record than the Lakers do. But regardless, if you sit at the 2 or 3 spot, right, that means you're playing against the Rockets in the second round of the playoffs. That would be another team that has a lot of that length, can pressure the ball, can bother some of your perimeter ball handlers, and they have a ton of physicality inside too that might generate some extra possessions. And you have Kevin Durant, who is quite the playoff performer in his own right. That would be a tough series, but it's not one that I would go into that series thinking like, nope, no chance. Lakers aren't going to beat the Houston Rockets. Um, and I also think that eventually we're going to see a better, like, I don't think this is the roster that the Lakers are going to finish with this year. I just don't. The Lakers are aware of the fact that they probably need to address some issues, and we'll see to what extent they're able to. And whenever they address those issues, I think Houston is a lot more put together as a concept right now than the Lakers are right now. And so if the Lakers improve enough over the course of the season and that is their matchup in the second round, it wouldn't shock me if they beat Houston. It would shock me if they got out of the conference finals and they played whoever won between OKC and Denver as the standings currently sit. Um, but that means you're out of the second round at least. So, no, I don't want Rui to continue to start. And no, I don't think this is a second round team at best. As they're currently built, I would say they have a puncher's chance in the second round, and they would get their butts kicked in the third. Think McFly writes, Brooks is a guy you can't stand, but won't complain about being on your team, like Matt Barnes, Pat Bev, etc. Well, I hated Patrick Beverley when he was on the Lakers, and he's way better than these guys. So, yeah, I think Sasha Vujacic was kind of like that too, right? Like Sasha Vujacic, Derek Fisher, Ron Artest. Like the Lakers have always had one or two of those guys on their team, and I think they miss that. Like Marcus Smart is that right now, and Jared Vanderbilt, when he's playing really well, is probably that too. But Vanderbilt is not just not playing very well. He's not playing at all. And the Lakers just don't really have anybody who is kind of wired that way outside of Marcus Smart. So I would like to see a starter bring that kind of mentality. Frankly, multiple starters. I would like to see multiple starters bring that mentality with them. But I think at best, you're probably going to get one starter bring that mentality this year. And then I would like to see some of that mentality carried out and extended out into the rest of the rotation. So, maybe Marcus Smart makes his way to the bench when the Lakers acquired their actual fifth starter. Maybe, and by way of, of doing that, maybe that means that Smart provides that level of give a bleep from the bench. Maybe a dude Thero cracks the rotation eventually. I think he's kind of wired that way. But overall, the Lakers are going to need to add a guy who is wired like Dillon Brooks, who is wired like Ron Artest, who is wired like some of these guys who had no problem whatsoever scrapping, and everybody knew it, right? The Golden State Warriors aren't the Golden State Warriors without Draymond Green. I know that's a big point of contention nowadays for some reason. But all of those guys will say the fact that at any given moment, nobody has any idea who Draymond Green might kick in the nuts. It's usually the white European guy, but still the fact that they never know for sure that, and if you're a white European guy, you're a little nervous being around Draymond Green. So So like, to a certain extent, it's like, yeah, the Lakers need a guy that like nobody. You play the Detroit Pistons, you never know who Isaiah Stewart is going to haul off and punch. You play against, any numbers of some of these teams, and they all have a guy that you're always just a little nervous about. And the Lakers have Marcus Smart in that way, but I think they need more than Marcus Smart in this specific regard. The Wannabe GMs podcast. Would you trade Maxi Thero in a swap for, is that Day'Ron Sharp? Is that who we're asking about here? Oh, that's a good question. Sharp is wired that way. He shares an agent with Austin, and he shares an agent with Laravia. And Aaron has told me that Sharp is wired like that, where he has no problem whatsoever stepping up in a moment that calls for stepping up. So that'd be kind of nice. Would I trade Maxi Thero in that swap for Sharp? I would try to keep Thero out of that deal. Might not be able to. I would try to see if they'd rather get Dalton instead, right? The former first rounder instead of the current second rounder. I think frankly, like we as Lakers fans feel higher about Thero than the rest of the league does. So I think there's a decent chance that maybe you can swap Dalton and Thero in this hypothetical. But I would probably say that Sharp would be an interesting guy to go out and get. I would like to bring his physicality on the interior. Like I think it has really helped that Jackson Hayes, like Pete said the other day, has gained some of that weight, and he is more of a physical presence out there. That has helped to a certain extent. But he still is not the kind of guy who is going to throw too many cheap shots, or that anybody is ever very worried about throwing a cheap shot. And I'm not sitting here saying, the Lakers need to be a dirty team or anything like that, but you want to be just dirty enough that the other team is always a little nervous about when that cheap shot might be coming, if that cheap shot might be coming. It's like, man, like back when the Dodgers used to play those like St. Louis Cardinals teams, and it just felt like they were always throwing high and tight. And eventually they plunked Hanley Ramirez, broke his rib, and he was never quite the same for that series. And I just never thought that the Dodgers were all that comfortable in the batter's box. The Lakers kind of need that kind of presence, where I think way too many of these teams are way too comfortable playing against the Lakers. All right, let's continue on. Ryan Lucas, LA, writes, how likely is it that they don't make any trades this year? I would be shocked. Shocked. Dumb. My founded would be dumb. My mind would be boggled, right? I would be. And by the way, if we do get to like the trade deadline, and the trade deadline comes and goes, and the Lakers don't do anything, and they remain relatively healthy, you can go ahead and mark on your calendars. Yeah, pop into the lounge that day, and I'll rip some people new rear ends. Because this team, I do think, I've been saying this for like half a decade, it feels like, but yes, exactly, Mo. My smack would be gobbed. I've been saying this for half a decade. I believe in this core. So before I believed in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, silly me. By the way, AD just helped the Mavericks beat the Nuggets tonight. I believe in Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reaves playing at an all NBA level. What an idiot. So if the Lakers don't make any trades this year, one, I'd be shocked. Two, I would be fucking livid. And that show would be worth setting some time for. Probably with headphones on, so that, people don't hear me screaming into the microphone, the curses that I would be screaming into that microphone. But yeah, suffice it to say that I don't think we have to worry about that. I think a trade, ideally 2 trades are coming. One for the starter that the Lakers know that they probably need, and 2 for just a little bit more, production from some of their expiring contracts. I actually don't think the Lakers are that against, uh, you know, clogging their books with some long-term money, if it means they get a player who would help them win a championship this year. And also, obviously, like, I don't think they want to add any long-term money on older players who are clearly on their decline. They would like to add, if they're gonna add longer term money, it's going to be to younger players who fit more perfectly on Luka's timeline, or even beyond Luka's timeline. To in that like they will continue getting better on Luka's timeline. That I think is what I could see the Lakers doing. But hey, also look, I would be stupid to ignore this, and no team in the NBA is ignoring this right now. But the Milwaukee Bucks have been a bit of a mess recently. They currently sit outside of the play, and they are 9-13 on the season. They have gone 2-8 in their last 10, and everybody around the league is just waiting for Giannis to just kind of look up at the front office, give that nod, and say, "We had a good run." Don't think that'll happen this year, like meaning in the season this year. But I do think a lot of teams are keeping as much of their powder that they can realistically dry, in the event that at the end of this season, Giannis just says, "I don't have a chance here." And he doesn't. Like, we all see it. He doesn't have a chance in Milwaukee. He had to do Herculean things to keep Milwaukee in the top 4 seeds in the East, and as soon as he got hurt, they fell off a cliff. So if he does kind of walk into John Horst's office at the end of the year and say, "I can't continue being asked to lift all of this on my own. I would like to go to a spot where I have a better chance at winning a championship." And, uh, you know, what can we do to make that happen? And if that happens, the Lakers don't want to do or don't want to see happen what happened to the Knicks, where last summer Giannis goes to, makes it known, yeah, the only team that I want to be traded to would be the Knicks. And then the Knicks like have those conversations with the Milwaukee Bucks, and they're like, uh, uh shit, 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 shit. No shit. We don't have anything to trade. What do you mean we don't have anything to trade for Giannis? I mean, we don't have anything to trade for Giannis. How don't we have anything to trade for Giannis? Like, that's exactly how that front office, I would imagine, looked in those moments. And the Lakers want to avoid, by all means, that taking place again this upcoming summer, in the event that Giannis, A, puts his name back out there in trade talks, and B, expands his list to more teams than just the New York Knicks. So here we stand. All right. It is an hour and 8 minutes into this recording. And my voice is doing okay. This was the first, I know I wrote that piece about, addiction and alcohol and stuff like that over Thanksgiving break. And this was the first game that, instead of a glass of wine next to me, I actually poured pomegranate juice into a wine glass and was kind of sipping on it. Picked a hell of a time to stop drinking because this game was super annoying and frustrating. But I do feel better. I do feel like I have a little bit more pep in my step for this episode. So I hope you guys notice that as well. And to all of you who have reached out, whether in DMs or emails or what have you, on the Discord and stuff like that, about that piece that I wrote and how it resonated with you because of your family or your own attempts at dealing with alcohol. I'm here for you. We can all get through this together. And Yeah, Mola picked a hell of a game to stop sniffing glue. I'll end on that note. Have a good have a good rest of your day, everybody. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow with a Q&A for the live show. And then Pete, Jovan, and I will be recording the Great Western Forum tomorrow night to run on Wednesday. So until then, freaking Lakers. Have a good one.